How forgiveness affects future events, future life events, not only for yourself, but also for others and also on a collective level. So, this was my favorite part of Love Has Forgotten No One, The Answer to Life by Gary Renard. Okay. So Arton, one of his spirit guides, which is, I believe, also a future self of Gary's, if I'm remembering correctly. It's been a while since I read this book, but I wanted to share it with you all. Let's see. Arton says, you had been practicing forgiveness enough that you avoided being in a car accident. Um, Let me start that over because I highlighted it, but let me read it from the top. Arden, remember the time we told you that you had been practicing forgiveness enough that you avoided being in a car accident? Gary says, yeah, I was at the movies and I chose the sucky film and thought I made a bad decision. But later you said it got out at a different time than a one I would have chosen if I wasn't practicing forgiveness. So, what happened was that because of forgiveness, there was a lesson I no longer had to learn. My learning had rendered the painful lesson unnecessary, and I switched to a different scenario. It was kind of like what the Course talks about early on. It mentions dimensions of time and says that the miracle, which is obviously the kind of forgiveness that comes from a place of cause and not effect, works in all the dimensions of time. I just love that. Miracles work in all the dimensions of time. Hmm. Wow. I just can't get over that. And that's one of the reasons why I feel Ho'oponopono works because you are clearing out old erroneous thoughts, words, deeds. Gary Renard and I differ when it comes to Ho'oponopono. We have a different viewpoint. I think Ho'oponopono is up there with A Course in Miracles, but I don't want to digress too far. Arden replies, well, what if I told you it's not only possible for people to do that as individuals, but that it's also possible for the human race to do that as a whole? In other words, as a collective. Gary, Jesus Christ, I never thought of that. You're saying that everything could be altered according to what the human race thinks collectively? And when I say altered, I'm not saying the script can be changed because it can't. There's something else going on when we talk about changing dimensions of time. Arton, exactly, Gary. For example, all the predictions we made about the future in our first two series of visits, plus everything we say here, could possibly become null and void if the human race were to switch to another dimension of time. If enough people practice forgiveness, you could switch to a different scenario. And it would also be possible for the Holy Spirit to erase the old tape. Just as the Holy Spirit collapses time for an individual and renders that person further along in the overall scheme of things, the same thing can be done for the world as a whole. Persa. You know how sometimes when you rent a DVD, it will contain an alternate ending? You can actually watch a different outcome to this movie you're watching too. Gary, yeah. I don't really like alternate endings to movies because I like films to be works of art that are a finished product. But I wouldn't mind the human race watching something better. Persa. Well, remember something. Even if you choose to watch that alternate ending, it's already been filmed. So you're not really changing the script, you're just watching a different part of it and the old part is being erased. It's not that you're making the new part up as you go along, it's already there. Gary, I see what you're saying. Like the Course says, you're still just reviewing something mentally that's already happened. That aspect of it never changes. Persa, yes. Gary, so in the scenario you gave me before, it's possible that a nuclear device, and you didn't say what kind of nuclear device, and for all I know, it could just be a dirty bomb or something, could go off in a major city. You said that four cities are the most at risk of some kind of attack: New York, Los Angeles, London, and Tel Aviv. But now you're saying it would be possible to avoid such an attack? Persa, that's correct. But notice we didn't say that you will avoid it. We said it's possible to avoid it by switching to a different scenario. Individuals, as well as the human race, are always determining what kind of experience they're going to have with their own choices. And I'm going to continue, but I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. I'm just going to read the highlights. Okay, now we want to caution you. This is Arden speaking. Now we want to caution you. Just because you practice forgiveness, it doesn't mean you'll always switch to a pleasant outcome. And you don't determine whether you switch dimensions of time. Only the Holy Spirit can do that because the Holy Spirit can see the big picture and you can't. Okay, so skip a few lines. Don't always expect good things to happen. Your job is to forgive no matter what happens, and you have to learn to trust the Holy Spirit more and more as you go along. And I'm going to tweak that a little bit. So Joe Vitale, he says expect good things, and I believe because of the law of attraction, because we are heirs to God, we were made in God's image and likeness. I believe that the law of attraction works. And so I would expect good things to happen, um, more on a holistic level, not necessarily for each and every situation, but yes, definitely expect good things to happen. At least that's my take. Okay, so that is it for this excerpt. Let me know if you have any questions or comments, and I'll talk to you later. I will be getting rid of this book fairly uh, soon, so probably in about a couple of days. So I won't have access to this book anymore. So if you have a question pertaining to the book, ask me now rather than later. Okay, talk to you later. Bye.